Somewhere in your pocket right now, there's a magnet made from a metal you've probably never said out loud, neodymium. And here's the thing, the company that mines it isn't the one that matters, it's the company that refines it. Because right now, one country controls that step almost entirely. Not most of it, almost all of it. So if you think the next war gets fought with missiles and microchips, you're only half right. It also gets fought with rocks. This is the story of how the West handed over the one material it cannot build a modern weapon, a modern car, or a modern grid without, and didn't notice until it was too late to take it back. Let that sink in for a second, because we're not talking about oil. Oil you can find in a dozen different countries. This is different. You've probably heard the term rare earth before, maybe in a headline. Maybe in passing, half listening to the news. 17 elements, names that sound like they escaped from a chemistry class you skipped. Neodymium, dysprosium, terbium, yttrium.
Here's the first myth. They're not actually rare. Cerium, one of the 17, is more common in the Earth's crust than copper. You could dig it up almost anywhere on the planet.
What's rare is turning that dirt into something usable. Raw ore is just ore. It has to be separated, purified, refined, element by element, using chemical processes so toxic, so environmentally brutal, that one country after another looked at the cost decades ago and quietly said, "Not here." One country said yes.
China said yes in the 1990s, and it never stopped. While Washington and Brussels were calculating environmental cost, Beijing was calculating something else entirely. Leverage.
Today, China controls something close to 90% of the world's rare earth processing capacity. Not 60, not 70, closer to 90. And for the heaviest, most defense-critical elements, the ones inside missile guidance systems and fighter jet magnets, that number climbs even higher. This was never really a mining story. It's a chemistry story. And China won it decades before most Western governments even realized there was a competition.
This isn't theoretical either. It's already happened once.
In 2010, a Chinese fishing trawler collided with Japanese patrol boats near a set of disputed islands. Within days, rare earth shipments to Japan quietly stopped. No announcement, no press conference, just nothing arriving at the docks.
Japan's electronics manufacturers felt it within weeks. The message was never spoken out loud, but everyone in the industry understood it anyway. We can turn this off whenever we choose. It was a preview, a small one. And for years, almost nobody outside the industry paid attention. Fast forward, April 2025, China imposes formal export controls on 7 rare earth elements. October 2025, the list expands and Beijing adds something new, extraterritorial reach. Products made outside China using Chinese-sourced materials or Chinese refining technology now fall under Chinese jurisdiction too, anywhere in the world.
By early 2026, licensing approval rates for European manufacturers had fallen below 25%. Prices on certain compounds spiked 6-fold. And in June 2026, Beijing blacklisted another wave of American companies outright, cutting them off from dual-use materials entirely.
This was never about scarcity. This is a lever, and someone is pulling it again and again, testing exactly how far it bends, and exactly how much the rest of the world is willing to absorb before it pushes back.
So think for a second about what actually runs on these metals. The electric motor spinning inside an EV, the magnets turning above a wind farm, the guidance fins on a precision strike missile, the vibration motor buzzing in your pocket right now. None of it works without neodymium and dysprosium magnets. And almost none of those magnets exist without a Chinese refinery somewhere upstream. This was never just a defense contractor's problem. It's the phone in your hand, the car in your driveway. Every promise your government has made about clean energy and national security, quietly resting on a supply chain that one country can throttle whenever it decides the moment is right. Somewhere, a defense planner is staring at a spreadsheet, trying to figure out how many months of magnets are left in the stockpile.
That's not a headline you'll see, but it's the real math running underneath this entire story.
So now, the scramble is on. The United States has launched a 54-nation alliance built specifically to construct an alternative supply chain. A $10 billion strategic reserve, stockpiling what's left. Australia, Japan, Vietnam, a handful of African nations suddenly being courted as future suppliers instead of afterthoughts.
But the experts working on this are blunt about the timeline. Rebuilding an independent rare earth supply chain from scratch could take 20 years, maybe 30.
China spent 30 quiet years building this choke point. The West is now trying to dismantle its own dependence in 5. There's a quieter story sitting next to this one, though. A country that saw the danger back in 2010 and actually did something about it. After that fishing boat incident, Japan spent the following decade quietly financing an alternative. A government agency poured roughly $250 million into an Australian mining company, backing a mine at Mount Weld and a refinery built in Malaysia, purpose-made to process the same heavy rare earths China had just used as leverage. It took over 10 years. The output is still small compared to what China produces in a single quarter, but it proved something important. The model works if a country is patient enough and willing enough to actually pay for it.
Now that model is being copied at scale and fast. The US and Australia signed a critical minerals framework in October 2025. The European Union launched 60 strategic projects under its own Critical Raw Materials Act. Washington is in talks with Kazakhstan, Saudi Arabia, even war-torn Ukraine, anyone holding rare earth deposits and the political will to develop them.
It's the first serious attempt in 30 years to build something other than dependence, and it's racing against a clock that only one country controls. Maybe that's the real lesson sitting underneath all of this. Not that China did something clever, though it did, but that real dominance isn't always won on a battlefield, in front of cameras, with headlines the next morning.
Sometimes it's won in a refinery nobody was watching, using a process nobody else wanted to deal with. Over 30 patient years, while everyone else looked the other way and called it somebody else's problem.
The next resource war may not be fought over oil fields, or gas pipelines, or shipping lanes. It may already be over. And most people are only just now finding out who won.